JD goes into his wonderfully continuous relationship with Canada Border Services Agency. Like, within the first 4 months of his temporary residency, he was arrested in a three-person, orchestrated sting for selling $10 self-produced t-shirts on Craigslist. That potential removal was dismissed by the minister at the advice of the adjudicator. But CBSA is not used to foreign nationals avoiding removal, so that dismissal was treated like dissent. And what does Canada's government do with dissent? Either does not listen, chooses not to care, or applies a generous amount of cruel and undemocratic punishment. After leaving Canada and then returning a month later, he was arrested again at the border for being criminally inadmissible, or in other words, not allowed into Canada because he has a past criminal conviction that would be a serious offense in Canada, at least according to CBSA. Let's put this arrest into perspective here. This issue was not an issue when JD first arrived in Canada. It wasn't on the table when CBSA arrested him and tried to have him removed from Canada for selling custom-designed tees. JD's supposedly serious 2005 offense, which would ultimately bar him from entering Canada for 5 full months, was a forced plea to, not theft as Canadians understand it, but theft of service, a controversial Texas law to criminalize debt. In the state where this charge originated, it had the legal weight of a traffic ticket, but some unfettered agency decided your taxpayer dollars had to prove otherwise. And there went those tax dollars. The decision was favorable, and JD remained in Canada until he left for 1 day in the States. When JD returned to Canada the very next day, he was arrested again while entering the border. Luckily for Canadian taxpayers and people concerned with governmental oversight, it was for a different accusation. And by different, I mean exactly the same accusation in which Canada Border Services Agency was legally proven unjust just 2 months before. If you're a rational, democracy-loving Canadian, you might be appalled that this type of abusive process happened and is continually happening in your country. You might want to give your government and its agencies the benefit of the doubt. Well, you shouldn't, because JD was handed a favorable decision again. That's great, but this detention, as if any imprisonment is good, was far worse than the others in the past. While JD was incarcerated for the removal that was anticipated by CBSA, he heard screams from the women's quarter of the BC Immigration Detention Center. A Mexican woman, who feared she'd be murdered if she was forced to return to her home country, hung herself in the bathroom of immigration holding. He told his partner, he told friends, it would be more than a month before the news of her death would be made public, and unbelievably, it wasn't from Canada Border Services Agency. Her name is Lucia Vega Jimenez, and she was silenced by Canada's government in life and in death. This accusation never happened and was quickly withdrawn. This is yet another abuse of power, considering JD had left Canada just the day before. And this accusation is where we are now.